hey, Chris, don't you think it's a little bit addictive? You make it or you die, like for real. Could I clean your yard? I haven't eaten in the last 2 days. If you're watching this podcast, never, ever underestimate what you're gonna do when you're put against a wall, when the only option you have is winning.
Beliefs are the hidden scripts that run our lives. Beliefs lead to thoughts, thoughts lead to actions, action leads to habits, and those habits lead to outcomes. So if we can master our beliefs, we can control our outcome.
Welcome back to Food for Thought. My name is Untitled Chapter, your host. And on this episode, I get the pleasure to interview Chris Aguilar. He is a speaker, mentor, entrepreneur, father, husband, phenomenal leader within his community here in San Diego. And he's been able to dominate within the real estate space and build multiple companies within that sphere, from a developer company to an investment company and now an education company, where he encapsulates all of that and shows people not only how to do it, but even gives them the step-by-step guide. And doing so much more within that. And in this episode, we get to learn a little bit about who he was before that, how he got to the point where he is at today, owning millions and millions of dollars worth of real estate all over the country, and even get a sneak peek of what his course looks like. So make sure to like, comment, subscribe if you're new here, and enjoy the episode. I really want to thank you for coming on the show. Super honored. I know you're extremely busy. You got a lot of stuff going on, and we're going to get into a lot of that. But I'm very thankful and honored for you to even just be here today with me. So I appreciate it, man.
Thank you, Santiago. Just walking to your studio, man, it's incredible. You guys got to come check it out. I actually want to do a video before we leave of your studio.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because I was just telling you before we started the podcast, your level of attention to detail, man, is next level. I love that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's funny because I know you're in the real estate business, and you do a lot of construction projects. And
yes,
it's funny because like what we were talking about before was before I rebuilt my garage, this is the first time I've actually ever done anything like handy-mandy kind of thing. And when I started doing that, like I exactly how you're saying, like every time you walk into a building, you start to look at the details.
Yes.
Because I was like, how did they like make this flush? How did they do this? And I started to kind of like, I feel like my level of attention detail like increased when I took on a project like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's when you start to do things on your own, you start to realize that there's obstacles involved. There's certain challenges you may face, and the best thing you do is to look at what other people did. And that kind of did it for me. So I appreciate that. But yeah, no, I really want to get into really, who you are and what made you who you are today. Because I know today, you're a father, a husband, you're a successful business owner, and I really want to get into that. But before all that happened, you can kind of walk me through your story a little bit. Like, where were you, kind of where you started?
Yeah, I would love to, man. So we started, I grew up in a beautiful family up to like 13 years old. With my parents divorced, everything became chaotic in my life. But it was so bad where at like 13, I pretty much lost my family.
Oh, wow.
I ended up living in the streets, for probably about 4 or 5 months until grandpa's and one of my older brothers picked me up. And I went back to school, did my thing. But, now I can tell you, I live a life that I feel like I'm living a dream. And, we have built multiple companies, probably about 15 different companies, 8 that are still very profitable. Some are multi-million-dollar companies. We have a $40 million portfolio and, beautiful family, an estate home, whatever cars we want, dine wherever we want. But it hasn't always been this way.
Mm-hmm.
There was a point in my life when I found myself working for this shipbuilding company, NASCO, owned by General Dynamics, I believe. And I got hurt. And it's quick story, funny story. I was hired as a pipe fitter, and they had at the time back then about 20-some thousand employees, and they rank you by how productive you are and how efficient you are.
Okay.
And in about a year, I was number like 1,540.
Mm-hmm.
And I hated that. And everyone there had been working for like 20, 30 years. And they're like, hey, youngster. They used to call me youngster. Dude, it's okay. Like, I've been here 20 years. I'm like number 2,500 or 15,000. I take it easy, but I wanted to be number one. So I kept on knocking on the door of my supervisors, and I wanted them to allow me to work next to the number one because I wanted to beat them.
Yeah.
So I went out and, I'm a highly competitor. So I went out after knocking on that door enough times, they granted me my petition, and I started working on the side of this guy. His nickname was El Burro. El Burro means donkey,
Yeah.
He was a hardworking guy. And long story short, I could not outwork this guy. He was a lot older than me. and I could not outwork him. And soon I got injured, trying to beat his pace. And I found out that he was actually doing drugs. He wouldn't take lunches. That's why his productivity was super fast.
Oh, wow.
And he was very experienced. So I ended up in light duty in a parking lot. And I remember, that's where my story starts. I remember walking a parking lot feeling like a big loser. Walking a parking lot with tears in my eyes. And back then I didn't have a relationship with God, but I was like, God, if you're there, like, why am I in this position? Like, I feel like I really suck right now. Like, what can I do? And I tell you, I remember this moment like if it was yesterday. I know where I was standing. I could show you there on 28th Street. I said, enough is enough. Like, let the real Chris Aguilar like stand up. It might have been because I used to listen to Slim Shady a lot, but dude, literally something happened to me where my life changed, and I went out, got my degree, finished college, got a job with the biggest at the time, biggest employer in the state of Arizona, top 5 developers in our country, as a director of operations. No, I went in as a project manager. Okay. Within 6 months, I took my boss's job and I became the director of operations, the youngest guy ever in that company to be a director and executive. And let me tell you, my life changed again in a good way, where any executive of the company had like a $10,000 credit card. You could spend it whatever you want, Porsches, Lex, all kinds of exotic cars, executive homes around the world, yacht, jet, whatever you wanted. I mean, if you're an executive, you have what the owner had, billionaire guy. But deep inside of me, Santiago, I was empty. Yeah. And I feel like, wealth without purpose will bring addictions, bad habits, greed, among a lot of other things that we shouldn't have. Yeah. I know better now, but back then I didn't. And it took me to a place of like, I didn't like myself. Then fast forward, there was a moment in my life where I feel like I hit rock bottom again. Maybe not financially, but more spiritually. And I came across a situation where only God could help me. And so God helped me out. I accepted him as my savior. My life completely changed. Wow. And then I saw this veil got removed from my eyes, where I could see that true wealth is built with purpose. I stopped trying to build something for me, or me and my family, and build for them. And what you see, I feel like when you can build stability and building for like me. I build stability, and you can probably build riches by doing it for your family, for, that we word. But when you focus on them is when you can reach greatness. Like, you're unstoppable. Yeah. So that's kind of like my story. Wow. It's my story of like where I'm at now. Hasn't been easy. I worked for it, but it has been where God has placed me in the right places at the right time. Yeah.
Wow. Do you see yourself, wherever you're at today, did you ever see yourself in that position? Is it something that just kind of happened, or were you like, one day I'm going to be in this position? How was that for you?
Santiago, that's a great question, because I always knew that wealth is mindset. It was mindset, a set of rules and principles. I didn't read books back then. I wasn't a big reader like I am now, but I just knew it deep inside of me. Maybe because my grandpa gave me a great example. My father gave me a great example. They were entrepreneurs. I don't think my dad ever had a job where he got paid hourly. He was always an entrepreneur. Oh, wow. My grandpa, the same thing. So they created great businesses before my family got, split up. And my grandpa created one of the biggest, copywriting, copywriting, like 8-track, 16-track, cassette, CDs through all Mexico, nationwide, without even, he hadn't even graduated from elementary. So I felt it, to answer your question, I felt that in my blood, I had it. Like, I had what it needed to succeed, but I felt like I was, I didn't know the right rules. I didn't know I didn't have the right mindset, and I had to start investing in myself. And self-education, probably the best. But to answer your question, I always felt it deep inside of me. I didn't know how I was going to look. Yeah. But I knew how to get there.
That's interesting. Yeah. I've noticed that, like, trending wise with a lot of people, that they don't always necessarily know how they're going to get there, but they know that they're always meant for more. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I feel that as well. Cause I mean, growing up for me, I didn't feel like I was always like, in a place where I belonged, you know what I mean? Like I grew up, my mom, my mom's from Colombia. So we migrated here when I was like, about like 4 years old. And,
So you're from Colombia too?
yeah.
Oh, that's
So I was
cool, man.
born there. Yeah. And then from there, my mom, it was just me, and my mom, and I was like kind of traveling between people's houses. Like we sleep on people's couches, garages, in our car sometimes. And, from there, my mom married my stepdad, and then he kind of brought more stability financially. Then we're just kind of like middle class. We're never like doing great financially. Habits weren't the best. But I always felt like I felt like this is not for me. My mom would always say like I was born into the wrong family, because I've always like, no, like we deserve more, we deserve better. And then my mom was just kind of like very grateful with what we had, which is a good, balance to have. But it was very interesting to me, because I always like to ask that question to see like, did you like, because I don't think that you can just stumble upon success. You know what I mean? Like, or like one day I just kind of woke up and I was here. It's like you got to be intentional about it. But everybody has a little bit of a different like perspective on it. I'd always like to ask that question, which is awesome. And I actually want to ask too, when you said you were 13 when you were homeless, right? What was that like? What did that feel like for you?
That didn't feel good. I'll tell you that. Coming from a family where my friends would, I mean, they would come up to me and envy the life I lived and the family I had.
Yeah.
And to go and, hit the streets, and from a friend's couch to my other friend's couch. And so it was terrible. It was terrible. And I feel like it didn't break me, because I always knew inside of me that God exists. It didn't break me because I always knew that I was raised in a way where you cannot be a coward.
Yeah.
My grandpa instilled this thing in me that I feel like it saved my life, where
Wow.
every time he came to visit, every time I went to go visit him, he always said, "Son, you're my champion."
Wow.
Like, I remember him going to some of my wrestling matches when I did Olympic wrestling, and me terribly losing one time because I was trying to be a show off, because I had actually almost pinned the guy, and I let him get up because I was like, no, I want my family to see my skills, and he pinned me.
Oh,
so
cool.
But my grandpa come in after the fight and he said two things. He said, "Son, you never give an enemy your back. But number two, you're still my champion. I know you could have won. You're my champion." So
wow, that's awesome.
He instilled that in me so much, Santiago, since I was like a 3-year-old, where I actually believed it.
Wow.
The power of being prophetic,
100%. No, that's crazy.
So I knew I was going to get out of it. That gave me hope. I saw the light at the end of the tunnel by my upbringing, what was instilled in me.
That's good. I like that you said that you knew that you were going to get out of it. I feel like that's where a lot of people mess up. I mean, I've been in really rough seasons in my life, and the one thing that really helps me progress and you do what I need to do in that day, not worry about, tomorrow, is knowing that there is going to be a time and point where I no longer have to deal with this. And I feel like some people just give up, and then within that, they just kind of camp out in that season of darkness and because they don't see the way out. And I've actually been in a position where, like a couple of years ago, where I was so deeply depressed, and while I was on the Marine Corps, that for the first time in a long time, I didn't see, like, I never saw a way out. Like I've always seen on the other side of the wall, no matter the obstacle, but that was the first time I didn't. And it was very interesting because I was like, I've never like not seen, a way out. And it was really like, it was such a paralyzing feeling. And I'm glad, obviously I got out of it, but it helped me kind of like get into that perspective of what it's like for someone who doesn't see a way out. And I know that earlier off air, we were talking about, delayed gratification and how that it plays such a huge part into achieving long-term success. And then even you said now you knew that there was a way out. Like, so you knew there was a time and place where you were going to receive that dopamine effect where you're like, wow, I made it, or I've accomplished X, Y, Z.
Yes.
And you knew, regardless of how you felt in the moment or what was going on in the moment. Can you talk a little bit about that, about how that kind of got you through that and how you apply that even to today as you're growing your businesses?
I've always been, and I love talking about obsession. I've always been obsessed about things. I always felt like obsession is a good thing. People see it. People that don't understand obsession see it as an addiction.
Yeah.
And actually, I was in a podcast not too long ago, Santiago, and I was talking about my obsessions, and the guy goes, "Hey, Chris, don't you think it's a little bit addictive?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? I an addiction is something that, first of all, you shouldn't have.
Yeah.
And second, it's going to hurt you and hurt others. I said an obsession is when you truly know the reason for your existence here on earth and one of your core values, and you move relentlessly towards it.
Yeah.
Because you know that's the only way to succeed.
Yep.
So I see adversity as an opportunity. I see problems as opportunities. The bigger the problem to tackle, guess what? The less competition. That's because people don't want to deal with problems. One of the things that I love studying animals. Like one of my favorite animals is the eagle, lion, probably like most people. But I was reading into a buffalo and a cow, and you probably heard that saying before with the buffalo and the cow, and how they're very similar beasts in shape and form, but the way they react towards adversity is very different.
Yeah,
when a storm comes, a cow immediately turns heels and runs away. And at some point, it'll be parallel with the storm, and it'll faint and pass out or get stuck in mud.
Yeah.
While the buffalo, when he feels with his intuition that the storm is coming, he digs his heels in the ground and he charges towards the storm because he knows that the fastest way to get through adversity is going through the storm.
Yeah.
And the sunny days always on the other side of the storm. So I felt myself that, going through adversity as a youngster, in my young teenage years, that was school.
Yeah.
That was you're military. So previous military.
Yeah.
So that was my boot camp. I feel like that was my welcoming to the entrepreneurial world, where either you make it or you die, like for reals.
That's true.
Like you make it or you will not eat tomorrow.
That's true.
Like, you can't be embarrassed and hit somebody up and say, hey, could I clean your yard? Can I work for you so I can make some money because I haven't eaten in the last 2 days?
Yeah.
When you're in situations like that. And another thing that I say all the time is never underestimate never underestimate. If you're watching this podcast, never, ever underestimate what you're going to do when you're put against a wall, when the only option you have is winning. Like, and that's how it felt.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to do incredible things.
That's true. Yeah. I like that you say that. I think one of the biggest, I feel like skill sets you could have is knowing to have like some type of confidence in your ability.
Yeah.
Because for me, I've always, I don't know if I mean, just naturally, if it's just me, but I operate better when I put myself in a position where I have no choice but to bet on myself.
Yes.
Like I like, and I don't always advise it, but like, for example, when I was starting with my finances, I got to a point where I started seeing some fruit and I started, getting some money in my bank account, and I was like getting a little bit comfortable. And I was like getting lazier, and I was like, you know what, like I can't do this. So I would take that money and I wouldn't like spend it or give it away, but I would put it into a bank account that I can't access. So then it would look like I didn't have that money. And then it felt for me that I had to like, bet on myself again, as if like it's like starting from scratch.
Yes.
And then I left the Marine Corps, started my own business. It was a big risk. And I always knew that, there's when I'm put into that cornered into that wall, that I will always come out on top. Regardless of how it feels. And I feel like it is something that's something good to practice too. I call artificial stress, putting yourself in situations that you decide to be able to make yourself better. Which is crazy too. Cause I mean, I love how you say you study animals, because I'm very similar in the aspect. I like to study, God's designs, you know what I mean? Like how he creates certain things and how they're parallel to, it's almost like cheat codes that are embedded within our nature.
Oh, I love that. Got to say,
it's
share
really
some more about it.
Yeah, so like for example, like one of my favorite things is like God designed water, right? As one of the biggest, probably one of the most important things on this planet.
Right.
But as a creator, like if you're going to design probably one of the most important things, you probably might as well just make it into an element where it's just water is its own element. But actually, it's not. It's two elements: it's hydrogen and oxygen. And then with that, if you unravel that, what that looks like is in order to make something that's truly essential, you have to be able to put two things together to actually make, H2O, right? And things like that. I'm like God has a lot of little details that he puts within nature that I feel like if you were going to emulate somebody or something, like you might as well emulate the creator, right? So I like to see how he did, like how, the world works, how things just operate within like animals, how animals are designed, and how they do things because God designed them. And it's really interesting to see how that operates, because it goes into, our day-to-day life and how we translate that. And it's just something I like. I do it as a hobby. Like I love to like look into it, but then I always see that parallel. I like it. It's really cool. Even like when, and I told this, I was on a podcast recently, I said this too, was even when my wife gave birth, like just the process of birth was like such a, like it was really weird how that happened in the aspect of like the season in my life, but it's just the whole process of, you know, of a baby being formed in a womb, and then up to the point of labor, and how the process of labor is, and how there's like extreme pain all throughout. And then when you hit that point of it, like maximum pain is usually when you're right about to like give birth and really have that breakthrough. And that's usually when you want to give up the most. That's when we took classes, and
That's so true.
Yeah, they warned us, hey, like there is going to be a point, because she did all natural, where you're going to feel this immense pain, and you're going to regret every decision. You're going to want to go to the hospital. You're going to want to get like, you know, drugged up. You're going to want to like, you're going to not even want your kid. Like it's that much pain. But that means that you're almost there. Because sometimes what women usually think is that they feel that amount of pain. They've been in labor for maybe like 10 hours at that moment, probably more. And they think like, oh, this is a lot of pain. Now I have to do this for another 10 hours. And it's not usually true. It means you're right like on the other side of it. And then my wife hit that moment. I had a reminder of that. And then, but parallel in my life, like I felt like things were going crazy. I've never been stretched to the point that I've been stretched in this past season of my life. And it was extreme pain. And I was like, man, like it kind of reminded, it was like God's way of reminding me like, hey, like you're right there. Because there is a point where I was like getting, you know, I had my son was born in the same process. You know, we built out our studio, and I was like doing so much that I was like, man, like I really overestimated my capacity, because my capacity has always been fairly high. And I was like going into this, like, yeah, I got it. Like I can do both, you know, no big deal. And I didn't take into account of the emotional drainage that it takes to have a kid. Cause I've gone to bed late, woke up early, no problem. Like, you know, that's always been easy, but I didn't take into account of having to do that. But then also like having emotional affection towards my son really kind of tires me out a little bit in a different way. And then I was starting to feel that like my capacity isn't there for the first time in a really long time. And it was immense pain. But then, you know, the whole birth of my son was really like a reminder from God of like, hey, like this is kind of where you're at. And I was like, well, we're going to stick it out. We're going to make it happen. Because at the same time, we had like a lot of issues with banking issues, client issues with people backing up last minute on contracts that were supposed to align up to be able to pay for, you know, things that were happening.
Yes.
And I was like, why is this all happening like right now? And then, you know, looking back on it now, like, you know, God was really bailing us out. Like that client was not, you know, didn't have integrity. So it was a good aspect that we didn't go into business with them. But in the moment, it didn't feel like that. And so there's a lot of things like that I love to look at, and I love to see like, you know, what is it that God's saying and I love designing, you know?
You know, you encountered, I love your story, because you encountered something you've never encountered before.
Mm-hmm.
But then you're still here though. But you finished your studio. It's a state-of-the-art studio. It's beautiful. So it just talks about who you are, and greater things coming your way, because you're not going to give up. If that didn't break you, it just made you stronger. So
100%. Yeah.
Now your capacity just increased.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned something about studying God's design.
Mm-hmm.
Or what did you say? What was your certain words?
I like to. I guess what I was saying was that I like to look at the way God designs things. Like God's like initial like his blueprints. You know what I mean? It's kind of like what it
is. Like God's way of designing. And you're right. I've noticed it. I haven't studied that, but I've noticed it. And one of the things that I said in my last conference, and I loved it. I think it came from a book. I don't know where I read it, but I got it, and I haven't forgotten about it. Is when we start allowing people to label us, you know, I truly believe that, and this part, I don't think I read it. It's just, you know, about something that I truly believe, that you, me, like we are geniuses. Like anybody in this world is a genius. Why do I say that? If we were made in God's image and we have 0.000 to the power of 1 million of God in us, it's enough for us to be a genius. The problem is that if we judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, he's going to live an entire life thinking it's stupid or worthless. Yeah. And that is the problem with most people. They believe the labels that they get from family members. Yeah. You know, growing up with an upbringing from, you know, a Latino family. I love my family. Yeah. But, you know, I grew up in a family where a normal saying was, hey, no corras, te vas a caer. don't run because you're about to fall.
Yeah.
It's a normal saying.
That's true.
But, me and my kids, I'm very careful in the choice of words where I'll be like, Brianni, Natalia, Chris, don't run, son. It can hurt you. And stop it, son. It's just a little change in your words, but it's 100%. A matter of mindset.
100%. Yeah. I like that you say that. That's something that I've actually grown to really, really like. It's like a muscle to really practice and how to be intentional about the words you use. And I actually try to practice it anytime that I can, is try to be very intentional of the word choices that I end up using, but then also be intentional about catching the words that other people use. Yeah. It tells me a lot about, because you have, there's a vast, vocabulary in the English language. You can choose, there's a lot of options as far as words go.
Words are powerful.
Yeah, exactly. But the ones that you choose tell a lot about, the way you think about the world and yourself. And so it's a good way of, I like to see how people kind of get a pulse on where they're at. And then the same thing too, like what you say to your kids is going to carry on, and that's crazy. And the other thing too that I was going to mention about God's design is at least my favorite thing that I love to talk about is the way God designed DNA. So DNA alone is it is mind-blowing in itself. It's crazy, because if you were to translate DNA into ones and zeros and put them into a format of a Bible, it would be 80,000 Bibles of just a strand of DNA, which is crazy. And it's crazy to think about. Crazy. But if one of those ones and zeros are off, it can completely destroy, or not destroy, but inhibit somebody's ability to do life, whether it's they're missing a chromosome, or if they're born without sight, things like that, right?
Look at the difference between us and gorillas.
Exactly.
Perfect example.
100%. Yeah,
couple chromosomes.
Banana, we share the same DNA with bananas.
That's crazy.
Which is funny to think, and it's just how first of all how meticulous God is, but second of all how crazy that alone is. So that's just for me. Every time I tell people if they don't believe in God, I always say just look into DNA and how it operates. And then if you want to take this step further, look into how the anatomy of the body works, and that's just another mind blow. But the main factor of DNA that I think is so interesting is that, and this is the way God designed the earth as well, and talks about it in the Bible, is that how God designed the earth and a lot of potential within it, but it's up to us as man to pull that potential out. Whether there's silver and gold and all these elements on earth, but it's up to us to convert that into materials, tools, so on and so forth, right? Same thing with our DNA. God has designed our DNA and packed our DNA with immense potential. And we actually go through our life with a lot of this DNA just sitting in our body and not even touching or even really getting to the point to unlocking that potential.
Whoa.
But the only way to actually unlock that potential is putting yourself in certain situations where then that DNA is activated.
People.
Exactly.
People, situations.
Exactly, right? Which is why you were saying hey, if you get through this, you come out better on top. And it's not it's a lot of people sometimes may think oh, that's just very motivational. If you, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And it gets very mundane to hear over and over again. But from a logical, scientific standpoint, it actually is exactly what happens. You're put through a situation, you actually go through it, and then a piece of you is unlocked. It's almost like a video game. You get a new upgrade, and you have a different understanding, a different way of operating. And that's exactly what I experienced in this season. Yeah.
I want to share with you a quote that I wrote in our book. It just came out, Just Maximize.
Awesome.
And it says, success is a product of obsession glued to relentless massive action.
Wow.
And why did I share that quote is because you're touching on it. Mm-hmm. I feel that if we think that the foundations are boring, then we're not going to get to a place of success. Yeah. You see, and then again, talking about obsession a little bit, here goes Chris talking about obsession, but we have a God who a day is like 1,000 years for him and vice versa. Mm-hmm. And the word of God, right in Genesis 1, right at the end, starting chapter 2 in the Bible, verse 1, it says, and he looked at what he created and he rested on the seventh day. Mm. He worked relentlessly 6 days, nonstop, no breaks, no lunch breaks, no sleeping. I mean, he worked relentlessly to create everything we get to enjoy with that intentionality, that focus, that precision, more than laser precision, and that is, I think that is what has gotten your success, man. you got to be obsessed with what you do. You got to love what you do to become great at it. You know, you
100%,
can't.
yeah.
I even say that I take it to this level where I say either you're obsessed or you're average. And
Yeah.
no one likes average.
Mm-hmm.
Like my wife doesn't like average in me, and she probably wouldn't have dated me if I was average.
Yeah.
You know, I met her at a Baskin Robbins, and I said, hey, can I buy an ice cream? She said no, and she went into her car. I'm like, that's messed up. But she saw it wasn't average. You know, that was a bad line to use. But you know, I'm married to her now. Something worked. You know, her cousin was kind to me. You know, but thank you, Stephanie.
Choose your way, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I do like, you know, how you're saying, you know, it's really one or the other. You know, I feel like there really is an in between within that, and I think that that's where I feel like a lot of people mess up. And that's kind of leading into my next question is, what do you think is the biggest downfall for people who choose to maybe put long-term, you know, gratification aside and want that immediate gratification? What do you think? Like, what do you think are the side effects and how it can lead to, you know, probably not even achieving anything great?
You know, I love that question, dude. It's delayed gratification. I think it's the one topic that all schools should be talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, success is not built on doing one thing right or two things right. It's doing a lot of things correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like golf. I don't know if you like golf, but you know, to play a good golf game or just to play good at just one hole, you got to put at least 2 good swings together. If you do one incredible swing, like the best swing of your life, but just one, and then 3 that are not good, it's not going to be a good hole for you. And that's kind of how life is. You know, you gotta be, again, obsessed, relentless, and in building something. You just can't stop. You know, I personally don't have patience for procrastination.
Mm-hmm.
I love to be a person that takes action, and you know, success is a product of people just standing up and taking action. You know, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but you know, I think action is what most people are missing.
Yeah.
And what I've created is because I'm a man that takes action.
Yeah, no, I think that's powerful, man. I think also I love that how you talk about golfing, because I mean I've never golfed before, not because I don't like it, but just because I just never had the time. But I was a marksmanship instructor, and we teach about the fundamentals and how if you miss a line on one of those fundamentals, you're not hitting your target. Yeah, and it's crazy. There's 7 fundamentals, and every single one of them are just as important as the next. Where you have you're up to your eyesight alignment, up to the way you pull the trigger, to the way you're looking through the scope, the way you breathe, like every aspect has to be, dialed in order for you to be able to hit your target.
Dude, I love that.
And if you don't, even like down to the follow through, if you don't follow through, like you can do everything perfect, but if you don't follow through, you might be like completely like to the left, to the right, just because you're anticipating or whatever it is. And I'm sure the same thing for golf. Yes. Follow through is a big thing through sports all across. But
dude, if I can add something to what you just said, I'm teaching my children, jiu-jitsu, self-defense.
That's awesome.
And the 3 A's that I'm teaching them right now is, hey, awareness, assessing the situation, and action. And I said, guys, 3 A's: awareness, assessing, take action. And you probably learned this in the military.
Yeah.
We go to this jiu-jitsu gym where they showed us this, but it is. We have to be so intentional in everything that we do in order to be good at anything, great at anything. I'm sorry, I don't like using the word good. Being good doesn't require a lot, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think you can be good by being average.
Just showing up. Yeah.
Yeah, showing up, Yeah. But to build greatness, truly to build greatness, you need to be able to go above and beyond, be able to understand that working 12 hours is not enough. That if you're sleeping 7 hours, let me tell you, there's somebody out there more hungry than you that is beating you, and it's your direct competition. Like I personally, I got asked the other day by a good friend, Gabe Mendez. He's like, dude, he's #1 social media real estate agent in California, and we did a podcast a few days ago, and he's like, Chris, I got to tell you, man, like I played soccer with you last week, and you're like 100% in soccer, 100% in basketball, with your family, in church, in business, as an investor, as an educator. Dude, what the heck? Do you sleep? Like, dude, like I thought I was intense. And I was like, and dedicated. I said, Gabe, how many hours do you sleep? I said, I don't sleep much. I don't want to sleep. As a matter of fact, I told him this funny story. 2 years ago, I go to my doctor and I made him laugh. I set up an appointment and I said, "Hey, doc," he goes, how are you feeling? We had your physical a few months ago. I said, "No, I have a question for you. I need a favor." He goes, "What's up?" I said, "I only want to sleep 3 hours. And I've been doing it for a while and I feel like my body's not keeping up. Can you give me something so my body can keep up with me?"
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, seriously, why are you here? I said, "Dr. Roland, that's why I'm here." He started laughing. He's like, "Dude, you can't. You got to sleep at least 8 hours." So then I'm like, all right, I didn't take no for an answer. So then I went to Chris Brown, who is an Olympic coach, rugby, champion Olympic coach.
Yeah.
And I said, "Dude, can I get a session with you?"
Mm-hmm.
He goes, "Oh, shoot, mate. Of course. Yeah, let's chat." So then we're in this session and I told him the same thing. And I thought he was going to have this secret sauce, right, from, Olympic champions.
Yeah.
They would know. He goes, "Hey, mate, there's no way your body can operate without sleep."
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't found the answer yet, Santiago. So he said no to me. So doctor and my coach, but I still feel that people miss out because they love sleeping more than their goal. They love sleeping more than, maybe I'll even say this, than how much they love their family. Sleeping more than how much they love, the goal they're trying to attain. So
yeah, I think that's kind of translated into just, I feel like, overall comfortability. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I mean, because if you sleep is kind of what that is. You're comfortable, you're in bed, and you don't want to get up. What would you say would be like a good practical tool or action for someone who is, let's say, like it's like they just find themselves, it's hard to get out of bed. Like they have all these ambitions. They may be working hard, but like they're like, man, like I just, in the morning, I just don't know. I want to stay in bed. Like, what would you say would be a good antidote for that?
I would say, as a matter of fact, I was born with something called the Gilbert syndrome. So the color of my skin is because of that. My mom's very light skinned. My dad's a lot lighter than me. My brothers are very light skinned. And one of the main symptoms of the Gilbert syndrome is you can't wake up early.
Oh, wow.
It's difficult to wake up. But I tell you, the way I beat that, and I still feel the same way sometimes. And I don't want to say every day because I don't want to prophesy that over myself, but I still feel like that, man. But let me tell you, when I aligned with it's mindset, when I aligned with my purpose in life, what I feel that I'm living a life in convergence with what God designed me to do. Like, I am an influencer. I'm a real estate expert. I'm a fantastic husband and father.
Yeah.
And that's my lane. And that's what I focus in. And if I just do that, bro, I seriously, someone asked me, "Chris, what do you do when you don't feel like it?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Dude, I always feel like it." And he laughed. I said, "Dude, I always feel like eating. I always feel like giving my life the best life she deserves. I always feel like having my children drive in a beautiful vehicle, in a luxury car, living in an estate home. I just don't feel like it." You see, if you build your life based on feelings, you're never going to build anything. Marriage won't even work for you. If we as entrepreneurs, we live off decisions. You make a decision and you go out and you do it. You execute. You burn the distractions. You burn the boat. If you can't wake up early because you just can't, whatever it is, whether it's Gilbert syndrome, maybe you feel a little lazy, maybe you lack motivation. Let me tell you what'll motivate you. You want me to tell you what'll get you on your feet? Miss 2 car payments and you'll be on your feet right away. See, if you,
that's true.
And I'm not kidding you. If you want to get on your feet, put yourself in a situation. You want to wake up early? Put yourself in a situation where you have to wake up. Santiago, we just opened up TCA, and it's our attorneys, and we hired the second biggest consultancy company in our country, to advise us on how to structure this thing with excellence. By the way, super side note, but if you want to build anything big, I don't care what industry you're in, I don't care if it's a family thing, ministry, look at what the biggest dogs in the world, the biggest champions in the world are doing. Study them. How many hours they sleep, what teams they got together, what's their routine, what are their marketing strategies, operation strategies, how much they pay their employees. Go out and do it.
Yeah.
And you're going to be winning at a very high level. It's that simple to reach high level positions in whatever industry you want to operate in. Don't settle for the average. But now back to my story. We hired the second biggest MLM consultancy company in our country to set us up. And the gentleman was very kind. He said, "Hey, Chris," he talked to me on the side on a one-on-one. He said, "Hey, I checked you out, and I've talked to you, and you seem like you've done well off."
Mm-hmm.
He goes, "Why are we doing this?"
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I have an assignment from God to open up this company." He goes, "The reason I say it, Chris, is because have you ever been in lawsuits?" I said, "Probably once in my life, and not because I started it."
Yeah.
I said, "It was more like a self-defense case. It wasn't even a lawsuit.
Yeah.
Not a business-related lawsuit."
Mhm.
He goes, "Well, you're entering to establish a referral business company." He goes, "Those are like the third most sued companies in the country." He goes, "And then you're entering the real estate education space, who happens to be like number 2. And you're doing them together combined."
Yeah.
He goes,
They're high.
we're going to connect you with an attorney who also is probably from what they said, the most successful attorney when it comes to referral business companies.
Mhm.
And I talked to him, and he told me the exact same thing.
Wow.
So the consultant, the CEO of this company we hired, had to get on the call to talk on my behalf to the attorney and tell him, "I'm vouching for Chris. He knows what he's getting into. He's very well off. I don't have to work for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Like, I could just stop working and I'm good."
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be good because I'm being called to greatness, to bigger things.
Yeah.
I'm on a mission from God to go out and take territory for His kingdom. So I can't stop. But the attorney was trying to convince me to not do it.
Wow.
And so again, how to wake up early? I'm putting myself against a wall,
Yeah.
but I don't have an option. Like, if I fail, Santiago, my family could be in jeopardy.
Yeah.
Like, if I blink a little bit and say something in the course that somebody else will go do and it hurts them, they can come and sue me.
Yeah.
It can hurt me. So,
True.
I mean, we're strategists. We have great strategy to protect our assets.
Mhm.
We even have a class on asset protection. Like, we know what we're doing, but I feel like I can't fail on this mission. I put myself in that position where I can't fail.
That's interesting. I like that you say that. Yeah. Because we were talking about that earlier, putting yourself in those positions and how it kind of, coming full circle, like creating that artificial stress. And then from there, that really kind of like lights fire underneath you.
Yeah.
You have no choice. It's because sometimes I feel like there's some people who are naturally, motivated and naturally wake up early, all that stuff, which is great. There's others where you need that resistance.
Yes.
To be able to like force you to do it, or again, puts you in that corner. I love that you said that. And it's also like, I'm glad you brought it up too, because I want to kind of go into your real estate world, switching gears a little bit, where I know you started in the real estate industry about how long ago?
So I started when I was 22 years old.
Nice.
With the company Gosnell Builders.
Mhm.
I started in the real estate business of developing real estate.
Oh, nice.
Acquiring assets and developing them at a very high scale, countrywide, and in some cases even worldwide. Some stuff that we did in China, I never got to go, but we just have some stuff in China that is probably up. Somebody built it for us. But so to answer your question, I entered at about 22 years old.
Wow, that's crazy.
I'm 40 now, so it's been a minute.
Yeah. It's just, it's like 2 decades. That comes with a lot of experience, and then you've kind of built your other businesses at the same time. Progress. How did that work? How did you even dive into, building one, let alone 2, 3? How did it even get to that point where you have multiple businesses?
So, I feel that I'm glad you asked that. So I started with my own developing company, and it's going to be 16 years. Here comes December, and December 22nd, and there's been some hard times, Santiago. I've had moments in my company. I mean, our company is very successful, but there was times in our company where, in order to meet payroll on a Friday morning, I was considering getting all the company trucks in the office and taking them to a car pound shop or whatever to be able to meet payroll.
Wow.
I'm talking about like difficult situations.
Yeah.
Where I would not pay my guys. That's a matter of principle.
Yeah.
And I never had to do that. God always showed up. But there were moments, the reason I bring that up, there were moments in my company where I said, the grass looks greener on the other side. I want to go and diversify. Diversification without first mastering your business, your craft, whatever you're the best at, is a distraction and it's a big mistake. Warren Buffett says diversification is for the novice investor. You know, Andrew Carnegie says the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, as you read their books, and I say the same thing too. So I never, I don't want to say never, but I seldom diversify out of real estate. So what I started building, to answer your question, I built a developing company. We opened up HouseMax about 12 years ago, the first real estate wholesaling company in the West Coast of the U.S. You know, we opened up Rock Solid Investments, Wyoming Bank. We opened up, you know, CWNC. We opened up Bigger Housing, companies that we still have, we still own. And we opened up many more that failed. You know, like a apparel company, a security guard company, a concrete business that failed. You know, and it's okay to talk about them because they might have been the biggest company ever, but they weren't. So now we got, so holistically, I've been around real estate. Everything I do is real estate. And just recently, we just opened TCA, what you asked about. And TCA, under the TCA brand, we have Maximize University. And dude, Maximize University is for champions, athletes who want to learn about fitness, online fitness. Entrepreneurs who want to learn about business, and we provide educational courses to teach them how to start a business. Like, you don't have to go get a 4-year degree. I have it, trust me. And going through one of our courses that are a lot less money can get you where you will learn a 4-year degree in real estate champions, what I call the BFWD courses: buy and hold, how to fix and flip real estate, how to wholesale real estate, and how to develop. And I am really honored that God gave me the privilege to be one of the pioneers of one of the industries that I teach, which is wholesaling. There was only one other company in our country doing it at the same time that I got the vision and I started the company. They started in the West Coast. They started in the East Coast, New Jersey. I started here in California on the West Coast. And it was, it's amazing that I get to do that. Now through TCA, we actually have on our conference on the 24th of June, we're going to have our pre-sale of our subscription, which is fantastic. Literally, you're going to be able to purchase a subscription that you don't have to pay for a whole year if you don't want to. You don't have to sign any contract. You can come in and literally have access to our info. And these are classes that people out there are selling between $20,000 and $60,000.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know, Santiago, that our company is going to be the biggest real estate, business, fitness, educational company in our country in the years to come. And on the real estate portion, I feel so confident about our curriculum, Santiago, because the way we teach it, the way we see real estate holistically, I even see states and the federations that regulate real estate agents, that establish the laws and how they test them to become real estate agents, are going to call us to add our curriculum. I don't think the testing they go through is wrong, Santiago. I just think it's incomplete. How can you have someone who understands perfectly, they're professionals for years, how to grab a property and sell it, and are professionals at it, but they don't understand the ideal foundational benefits of real estate. The ideal benefits, an acronym that I came up with, it's income producing, depreciation benefits, equity by mortgage payoff, appreciation that beats inflation, at least for the last 52 years, and leverage like no other commodity. You see what I'm talking about? So I feel that our ideal client are real estate agents, maybe loan officers, contractors. So I'm so excited about this company, and we're on a mission.
No, man, I love that. I love how, first of all, thank you for sharing about, how you have businesses that fail. Because I feel like a lot of people don't get to see that side, to see the success. And you said something too earlier about how when you were, starting that company and you had those moments where you were almost going to sell, your vehicles to be able to pay your team. And like, I definitely relate to that, man. Like I had, my business is only 2 years old. And this last season, to add on top of everything else that was going on, we had like these banking issues. We had a client that wanted everything that we did for them for free because they paid a portion of it. They got what they paid for, but they wanted the remaining stuff for free. And we wouldn't give it to them unless they bought the rest of it. And we gave them a good price and everything because we wanted, just kind of rid our hands clean, right? Do business well. And they went, behind our backs to their bank. It told the bank that they never received a service. And withdraw a big amount of money within my account because it was like a credit card that they paid with, and it was a huge issue because at the same time we're building, our business facility here, and I'm like, it put me in an issue where I couldn't pay my credit cards, couldn't pay my team, and I was man, like I was in a really hard position. And on top of that, it was like right before a merge, and I flew like 2-3 people out, telling them I was going to pay for their tickets. And God came through, and 2 people gave some tickets for free to those guys, and it worked out well. But it was, I was like, man, like this is like, this is hard. This is a part of business that people don't talk about.
It is real life.
Yeah, exactly. And I, I like that you said that because it, gives me hope, because I'm in that. I was in that, and I kind of like, I was like, man, like I knew for sure, like I was starting to get into the point of business where things are getting real, because I'm starting to get more resistance, because the first year in business was, to be honest, for me, a little easy. Yes. We had great clients, coming in, like traveling, all stuff. And it was great. And I realized one of my old mentors told me, he's like, you haven't really started to make real money until someone tries to sue you, or someone tries to like actually come after you in those aspects. And that's when it felt like this person was really trying to come at us that way. And I feel like also I don't know their intentions, and but they lost that whole dispute. We got the money back, and it happened in record time, and I believe that was all God's grace for sure. But then they tried to do it again, and I feel like at that point they were just trying to like hinder our process, because I know even though we get the money back, but the fact that it keeps getting pulled in, pulled out, getting bank fees, because all that stuff, I was like, it became an issue. But then thank God that was like wasn't something that continued. But I was like, man, like I knew that this is not going to be the last time.
Yes.
And I knew that I was like entering new territory, and I was like a little discouraged too, because I was like, man, like, on top of everything else, like this is business isn't easy. But when you hear other people that are at the level that you're at saying like, hey, like that's the name of the game, it definitely gives me more assurance. Like, okay, cool. Like I'm on the right track. Yes. You know what I mean? If it was easy, then it doesn't mean I'm on the right track. I feel like, you know what I mean? And I love that you brought that up. And I love that you even said how you have all these multiple businesses, but you weren't like building in different industries. You were able to find, one piece of bread and slice it in different ways to be able to create, multiple forms of income for yourself. And I think that's genius, because a lot of people do what you're saying, where they kind of like diversify in a way where they're chasing the next shiny thing, like, oh, like crypto. Oh, I want to then do real estate. And then I want to get into, like selling like, graphic tees on Shopify. Then I want to get into this. And then they're like, they got all these different things, can never focus on one, and then mess all of them up versus, honing in on the one and then realizing an issue. And then from there, creating another business to then solve that issue for yourself, and then doing that over and over and over again. I think that's genius, because then even too, tax wise, you can utilize your own companies and write off on that, and then kind of building to where you're at now, where now you have a course where you facilitate people how to do it, but then you can even plug them into your businesses, and then you own those businesses, so then it leverages the user, and I think that's genius, man. It's a whole ecosystem that you're building, that you've built, that I just think is extremely impressive. I really wanted to tell you that.
Thank you, Santiago. And something I want to add to what you said is, I was just thinking as you were talking about the fact that I don't have any significant income coming in that is outside of real estate.
Wow.
I've tried numerous times. It's a confirmation for me to not go outside of real estate. Numerous times I tried.
Yeah.
Like, and I use gambling money.
Yeah.
When I've gone outside of real estate, I've known this is not my area of expertise. I can lose it, and I've done it willingly. So that's another a great piece of advice. If you ever go outside of your industry, you're gambling if you're not an expert. You can never entrust somebody else with your finances and think they're going to take care of it as if it was you as an expert growing that money. So if you are investing and you're really gambling, be careful. Like don't, the biggest mistake you can make is think you're investing when you're really gambling. And I've seen people get really hurt by making that mistake.
Yeah.
So,
I've seen that.
Man, I think and another thing I want to say too is, Andrew Carnegie said this, and I love reading about the founders of our country, man. And one of the things that stood with me is I didn't understand it until recently. And he goes, the best thing that can happen to a human being is be born in poverty. I read that like back in like probably high school days. And it never made sense to me. I said, this guy must have been smoking something really good to say stuff like that.
For real. Yeah.
I didn't get it until recently. It hit me because I saw what happens when people are born in wealth.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, when people are born in abundance of money, not wealth, because wealth is a mindset and a set of principles.
That's true.
So, and I seen them growing up. We had family, not family, but we had friends of our family that were very wealthy. And I see where they're at now, where they lost everything their parents built.
Yeah.
And I see where we're at now. And I was raised in poverty. And I see, whoa, Andrew Carnegie was right. He must have said it for a reason,
Yeah.
So Napoleon Hill mentions that as well. So something to think about.
Yeah, no, that's powerful. I agree. I think it really like shifts things. And kind of going back to that whole DNA thing, because you're put in that position and unlock something in you.
Yes.
And then I feel like you don't treat it as if you are, when you're born into a significant amount of money, you kind of like, it becomes like so like normal to you. You kind of like lose the appreciation of certain things and then carry yourself in that manner versus someone who knows what it was like and then knows, not that they don't want to go back to that. I feel like they treat it a little bit different for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
I agree.
So my children, I have 3 children, a Brianni, my Natalia, and my son Chris. And I don't give them money just because. They have to earn it.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're like, hey, daddy, my friend bought the shoes. They were like, $180. And I'm like, yeah, you're only 12 years old. I said, yeah, but we're rich. I said, boy, you're not speaking like a rich person.
Yeah.
I said, because do you have the money?
Yeah.
And I don't. What did you do to get that money?
That's true.
And I really like sit them down and eventually I probably will buy them the shoes, but they have to earn it.
100%.
It's a mindset, and it's a mindset.
Yeah. I agree. I think it builds good life skills.
Yes.
For sure. Yeah. I think that's awesome.
Something that someone asked recently, they're saying, Chris, what is the one way to balance in investing in life? And I said, I don't think there should be a balance. I think that my family comes with me when I go to a conference. They'll come with me if I go. They come to the office often, and when it's safe for them to come around. When there's not a lot of moving parts to the business. They go to job sites with me and show them what we do, what we built. Yeah. And there's no need to separate one or the other. We're all moving on the same lane, on the same purpose. Because I'm leading my family, I'm the leader of the household. They're part of our mission for now. Yeah. Until they become adults. And as far as investing goes, I feel that I have lived my life, Santiago. Like right now, I'm here with you. You have 100% of my energies. My focus is in you. I'm not thinking anything else. Yeah. Just talking to you and being in this room. And that's the way I've lived my life. I lived my life as if I was going to die tomorrow. But I invest as if I was going to live forever. And that formula has really worked for me. And I get to live in financial freedom because of it. Yeah. I don't focus on material things as much. I enjoy them. I have great things that are expensive, but I didn't pay for them. My investments, my passive income paid for it. Yeah. And that's the delayed gratification part. So
no, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. And I think honestly, man, as you were telling me about, the way you've came up from, when you were 13 and homeless, and then up to how you got into real estate and how you've diversified your companies, by doing that within real estate. And then now doing all that, putting it into a course where you can then show people how you did it, I think is powerful, man. And I think there's no better person or better, company to do it than you. Cause not only are you like actually, doing it, you're walking the walk and you built it, you've done all these things. But you actually have all the character development, in order to hold it. Because I feel like a lot of people I know a lot of people who did really well in real estate, who have done good things in real estate. They made money fast and they kind of jumped the gun a little bit, want to make a course and the course is okay, it's decent or, whatever. But what really happens is where they miss the mark is they didn't do the character development part. So then they don't know how to lead people into actually not only attaining, but, being able to hold it and maintain it. Which I think is the part that I don't think is as sexy and I don't think people talk about, but I feel like you have that, you carry that. And
wow,
I believe
it's a great observation, Santiago.
Thank you.
In TCA, to reinforce what you said, people can't buy one of our courses. if they didn't go through the foundations course.
Wow.
That teaches them how economy works, business, Federal Reserve, corporations, structure, departments, financing, all that.
Wow.
And mindset. And mindset.
Awesome.
If they don't go through, if they don't pass it,
yeah,
then we will not allow them to buy
like
another
that.
course.
I think that's different from what most people do, because a lot of people are really quick to get people's dollars, and I think that they're like, they don't care where you come from or what it is, because it's almost like I feel like I call it like a gym philosophy, where you don't care who comes in and pays you monthly, because majority of them aren't going to even show up.
That's a mistake.
Like
that's like short-minded people, and I say this very respectfully, because I know people that are doing it like that. But then I just said it right. But, my bad. But what I'm saying is you see, when your goal is money, money might come for a little bit, but it doesn't stay for a long time. When your goal is beyond money, is when you build amazing things, when you have authority, dominion, when you subdue an industry, when you have control over an industry. I was trained by the best builders in our country as a developer. And I have come across the best architects probably that our country has produced, friends of mine. And as a builder, I have not met someone that has the vision and they care for our clients like myself through our company. I truly feel that I am the best in what I do.
Wow.
I just feel it because I put the work in.
Yeah.
God blessed me with put him in the right places. But I say that respectfully.
Yeah.
I actually earned those positions. I worked for them. But I also feel that I got a door open by God because of the people that were praying for me. There's something called favor of God, where things just happen for you, where you knocked in doors, 100 doors, 200 doors, 300 doors, 1,000 doors, maybe 2,000 doors. And sooner or later, if you're knocking on the right doors, one's going to open up.
Yeah.
So anyways.
Yeah, no, I love that. I agree 100%, man. I think that it's like, you do everything within your natural, and then God meets you with his super.
Yes.
And that's really where a lot of those amazing things happen. Some people kind of like just are kind of waiting for God to just show up. And then other people, are doing all the work, but aren't inviting God. So it's like that middle where it's like, you're doing all the work, you're doing everything in your natural, and then inviting God to show up with his super. I think that's awesome, man. I love that. And I love everything you shared. Honestly, man, I think there's so much value within this, episode. And I really want to, plug you into our audience. And if you can just look into this camera and let people know where they can find you.
Yes. Well, before anything, thank you for inviting me. And I learned a lot from what you talked about today too. So
thank you.
Again, you can find us at any of the social media platforms, but I would suggest Instagram. Click on the link in my bio. Our name there is Chris Aguilar. So thank you for listening.
Thank you again, man. I really, really, have extreme gratitude for just you and your team coming out here, because I know what it's like to build a business. I know time is valuable, and again, I don't take this lightly. So thank you again for coming on the show, man.
Right back at you.